Some 800,000 federal workers have already missed one paycheck during this shutdown, and by the end of the week, they will miss another one. Democratic Congressman Khanna represents California's 17th district, which includes Silicon Valley. He joins me now from Capitol Hill. Welcome, Congressman Khanna. Thanks so much for being with us. You recently floated having the White House and Congress appoint mediators to negotiate an end to the shutdown. What would that look like, and do you still think that could work?
Well, first, it's clear that there is not a both-sidism to this issue. The shutdown has been caused by President Trump. The House has voted 8 times to reopen government and fund government, and the president hasn't moved for his own campaign promise. That said, what I had floated is the president can appoint 2 people, the House will appoint 2 people, the Senate will appoint 2 people, and let's come up with 6-0 proposals to get government back on track. I don't know if the president would go for that because he hasn't been interested in real compromise to get government back open, but it was an idea I floated.
Now, Congressman, we know that the president has not seemed likely to budge on his number for the wall, but is there any amount of wall funding you'd be willing to support?
No, there isn't, but that has nothing to do with opening government. We can have that conversation and negotiation after you open government. I mean, imagine if a Democratic president said, if we don't get Medicare for all, I'm going to shut down government. Or if President Obama had said, if I don't get the ACA, I'm going to shut down government. The president has every right to go through the process to try to garner support for his idea through the House and the Senate, like every other president has done before him. But for him to shut down government is just irresponsible.
And so how much time right now are you and your Democratic colleagues spending at the negotiating table?
Well, I have great confidence in Speaker Pelosi, who is leading the negotiation for House Democrats, and we are united behind her. One of the things the House caucus wants to convey is that we are unified. We have one spokesperson in the negotiation. That is Nancy Pelosi, and we're not going to engage in the president trying to pick off any individual member. So Speaker Pelosi is leading the negotiation and keeping the caucus fully informed.
And Congressman, are there many federal workers in your district? What are you hearing from your constituents about the shutdown?
Well, it's very sad. There are federal workers, of course, in my district back home in Silicon Valley, and I meet federal workers all the time here in Washington. And you're hearing stories that people aren't getting paychecks, they're having trouble with their mortgages. I heard someone tell me that a department had issued guidance about odd jobs that they can be doing and how they can get loans. And here's what's sad about this crisis. It's totally caused by the White House. It's not something that was beyond our control. When you have recessions, you can't often blame someone. This is a self-inflicted crisis caused by incompetent management because the president cares about his campaign pledge.
And Congressman Khanna, last month you wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post that the president was correct to pull out of Syria and Afghanistan. As you know, a U.S. service member was killed in Afghanistan today, and an ISIS suicide bomber targeted a convoy of U.S. troops and Kurdish soldiers in Syria on Monday. So in light of all of these recent attacks, do you still think the president made the right move?
Well, I think it's more of a reason to get our troops home. They're now a target, and they're not safe there. I don't think the president went about it correctly, as I had pointed out in the op-ed. There should have been an agreement with Erdogan so that the Kurds weren't annexed. There should have been some regional agreement so that we took moral responsibility for the Syrians that we were protecting and gave refugee status. So we should go about it in a much more thoughtful way. But I do believe we need to bring our troops home. In Afghanistan, the Taliban threatens to control almost 70% of the territory. The surge hasn't worked, and our troops are sitting ducks and targets in those countries.
And you are on the Armed Services Committee. To you, does the Democratic nominee in 2020 have to be committed to withdrawing troops from these countries?
Well, certainly I would support someone. I don't think there need to be litmus tests. It should be a full debate, and everyone should be welcome. But I will support a nominee who is for greater restraint in our foreign policy, who is for ending these endless wars and bringing us home from interventionism. Here's the irony. On this, I actually wanted to go to Nancy Pelosi and the House leadership and build support for the president's idea of withdrawing from Afghanistan. He hasn't made my life easy by canceling the Speaker and leadership's trip to Afghanistan. So if he wants progressives to support him on some of these foreign policy decisions of withdrawal, even though we may have a different way of going about it, he shouldn't be canceling trips for the leadership whose support he would need.
Now, as you know, the FTC is reportedly considering imposing a massive fine against Facebook for violating privacy rules. You, of course, as we said earlier, represent Silicon Valley. What is your reaction to this?
It's probably justified. I haven't looked at all the details, but it's unquestionable to me that Facebook has violated consumer trust, and they have a lot to do to make up for that. That's why I've proposed an Internet Bill of Rights. A couple very simple principles. Before people collect data, they should be able to get consent. And people should know what's happening to their data if it's handed over to a third party. Facebook didn't do that. They should be held accountable.
All right, Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on.